Hello, everyone, and we are live as promised at 3 p.m. I have no idea how many people are actually live with us right now, but we had 109 people who signed up. And as it goes with webinars, we know that not all of you have the chance to attend live with us, but no worries. Recordings will be available as well. But if you join in live here at any point, then feel welcome to also join into the chat. We're happy to address your questions in real time as well as we can. So with me, I have Kris and Jordi. Kris, perhaps shortly you can introduce yourself.
Hi, Guus. Hi, Jordi. And hi, everyone. So my name is Kris Achten. I'm from Antwerp, Belgium. I currently lead the international marketing and recruitment team at KDG, University of Applied Sciences and Arts. And besides that, I'm a self-employed solo consultant on marketing strategy, storytelling, and community.
All right. Well, welcome. And Jordi.
I'm Jordi Robert Ribes. I'm the founder and CEO of EDUopinions. Started EDUopinions about 10 years ago when I noticed there was a lack of trust in marketing materials. Noticed that at home with my daughters, but then also I recently read a survey that says that only 2% of students, prospective students, trust mainly the university websites. And for what matters for our session today about AI and LLMs, that also transfers to LLMs.
Mm-hmm.
The LLMs trust what's not on your website more than what's on your website.
Yeah, and let me, start with that as well. I met you, I think, when you were 1 or 2 years in, and at that time, I think that was a hunch. There wasn't as much reviews going around, but marketing as we know it, and online marketing as we know it, is changing. What has happened is that AI is really reshaping what students see about schools, whether you're a university or a language school or anyone who is offering education will be thoroughly scrutinized these days. And this study from IDP Emergent Futures was actually conducted in August 2025. At that time, 54% of the panel said that they would use ChatGPT or, I presume, another tool in their quest to make a decision. And that was up from 35% the year before. But of course, we are almost in August 2026 right now. So that 54% is looking in the back mirror, and we may be at a much higher number. We are very likely at a much higher number. People have become more familiar with AI tools, have more integrated in their life, and also those tools have continued to evolve and improve. So it is no longer just a nice channel to have. This is really playing a key role in people's decision-making process. But even when people simply go to Google, we see that Google is less and less likely to actually refer prospective students to your website. They may provide an AI overview like what you see here. This says student living cost in Edinburgh, and although it refers to a bunch of different web pages, it gives the answer right in the search result page. And that means that as marketers, we have to think about how we can influence in an ethical way what these LLMs actually say. And that's really what we're talking about today. Because as much as it's about your own website and what your own website says and how clear it can be, and that is super important, LLMs are always going to use different types of input. So it's important that we mind what the other types of sources that are being used. So Kris, KDG has actually won some awards based on not rankings, so not the scientific ranking awards, because you're not that type of institution, but awards that leaned on the strength of your testimonials and your reviews from your students. So what did you do? How did you get your students to provide such stellar reviews?
What did we do? There's a lot, but I think it really started with becoming extremely clear about what we offer and who we offer it to. Like, who would we benefit the most with the type of university, with the type of programs that we offer? Who would benefit the most from this? And As you mentioned, we're not a research university, we're a university of applied sciences. So traditional rankings are not something we qualify for because we don't have the research component. So we were looking at other ways on how can we actually measure whether we're delivering on that promise. And throughout the 7 years that we've building on our portfolio, we've always heavily involved our current student body in everything we do. And that is program development, marketing and recruitment, so student ambassadors, but also how we organize support. So throughout the entire student journey, from the first contact with the university up to the point that students graduate and beyond, our students give us a lot of feedback on whether we're actually delivering on that promise. For us, the reviews were only the last part in this process. And so we only started collecting reviews 5 or 6 years in, like public facing reviews, but we did a lot of surveys internally prior to that just to make sure that we were delivering on the promise that we made. And then these reviews, well, as you said, you called them stellar reviews, but they're not necessarily reviews that say this is the best university or this is whatever superlative word you want to use. I think what the real strength of these reviews is that they reinforced the message that we have on our website and that we have on all our marketing materials. So they're reviews that testify that we deliver on the promise that we make. And because of that, they're very effective reviews, because for students looking for exactly that study experience, the type in which we specialize, then they know, okay, this might be exactly what I'm looking for. And there's a lot of people who've gone through a similar experience and they're very happy with the outcome that they've achieved. So the awards that we won, for us, it doesn't mean that we're better than anyone else. It just means that what we say that we do and what we do is quite well aligned. And that is reflected in student testimonials.
So if I can summarize, first, you didn't start collecting reviews too early. You started getting really clear at what is it we are and what is it we offer and who do we serve.
Mhm.
Then you internally surveyed, but you did not push people to put a review so that you knew that you were on track. And you knew when you were ready to ask for reviews and sort of come more public when those things already aligned.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we invested quite a bit of time in our positioning, like just to make it very clear first for ourselves, like how do we relate to all the other institutions that are playing in our field and how are we different? Not in terms of, not functionally, like not in terms of size or location, but how are we different in terms of the benefit that students could get from us that maybe they can get to a lesser extent somewhere else. And then we really made sure that we translated this positioning into a brand promise. Like if you come to KDG, you will feel welcome, you will be accepted, you'll be cared for, catered for, regardless of your background, regardless of your academic performance, and we'll make sure that you excel in the field that you want to excel in. And we've decided to become very much a student-led or student-driven organization. So our students, as I mentioned, they were involved in the marketing strategy. So we got students to help out with the marketing strategy. We started an international student council, so like an internal advisory group of international students that advised the university board on the support system, on the program, basically all the operations. And throughout each cycle, and that's a big advantage we have in higher education, is that it's a cyclical system. So you can improve gradually. You can make incremental gains every year. So you get much, much better every year on what you actually want to deliver. And what we noticed and the moment we felt that it was right to start collecting reviews was the moment that we saw that our marketing, our organic marketing, word of mouth marketing, started attracting exactly the type of students that we hoped would find us. So our best student ambassadors, our best alumni, not best in terms of academic performance, but the best fit of the university, they started sharing their stories, and that attracted more people like them who were looking for a similar study experience, which what happened to be something that we had built already. So that created a marketing flywheel where our reputation drives our brand and not the other way around. And only at that
This
point,
is not just a marketing gimmick. There is a marketing side to this, but you actually need to deliver.
right? Yes.
So I'm sure that many institutions that are on EDUopinions, they may also have a fear of opening the student voice because perhaps they're not so sure that their students will post positive reviews. What is your experience with that? How does an institution come on board? What is usually their experience when they start becoming more proactive about asking for reviews?
There are some institutions that have some fear, as you say, of what if I get a bad review and so on, but that's the minority. What we suggest is start collecting reviews, as Kris was saying, deliver a good product to your students, start collecting reviews. Some might get into the fear of, I'll start next year when I'm better. I'll start in 2 years' time. No, you can start straight away if your students are happy, because if your students are happy, you want them to say that they're happy, or if they're something that they prefer, they'll tell it in the review, and this will help attract other students that are a very good fit for your program, for your institution. And even now in the age of AI, for instance, say, what if I get a 3-star review? Don't worry, it doesn't matter. 3-star review can be very good. For instance, I was analyzing the other day some 3-star reviews. Out of 3,200 3-star reviews, they also contain the word great, excellent, amazing. So even if they were 3-star reviews, they were talking about good things that the student was happy about. And even better, half of those reviews were not saying the word but or however or whatever. So they were really saying something positive about the institution. So go out and let the students will be talking about your program, about your institution. So better they talk it in the channels that you offer them, you prompt them to share their experience, what's good about the program, what they like about the program, etc.
Yeah. So I guess this is really about information gain as well, right? So you can have, hundreds of reviews that look like they are great because they're just saying great review, whatever. But if they all say the same thing, then actually that doesn't really help students and also prospective students who go to ChatGPT and who say, what are the pros and cons of this institution? ChatGPT is going to be looking for the cons, even if there's only 1 in 1,000 that is mentioning a negative aspect. Those negative aspects, students now have the tools to find out because they have an assistant that can go and find out for them. So you might as well come out with the things that are not exactly you. I guess it's a little bit like a job interview where, people ask you like, what's your weak point? You come up with something that is a weak point, but that perhaps can also be framed as something that makes you suitable for that particular job or that particular role.
And in the age of AI, students can browse all the reviews at once and get the ones that are specific for them.
Mm-hmm.
Student may ask, okay, I've received an offer from EDEC and an offer from Schema. I'm particularly interested on the academic part of things, more on the social life on campus. Please tell me what students say about these 2 institutions. And I'm interested only in what students say, not on what their website or marketing materials say. They putting these kind of questions to AI, and then AI goes and gets the comparison for that specific student. If that specific student tells, I'm interested in that more than that other thing.
So now I'm interested how Kris and his team can prompt for or somehow get reviews that actually have more information gain than just like, I had a great time here and all the standard things.
Well, I think it was mentioned tangentially, but I'd like to emphasize this. Like reviews, they're not about the stars, not about the number, but about the actual content, because there's no such thing as the best restaurant. Like McDonald's also gets 5-star reviews, right? And other 3-star Michelin restaurants get mediocre reviews from people who are expecting something completely different. So it's not just about the number or the rating, but it's the actual content of what a student has experienced there. And I think in that sense, people aren't naturally good at giving testimonials and reviews. Like I see this with all my clients. Their clients kind of need some help. Like, what does a good testimonial look like? How can it be helpful? And one framework that I found very useful is to see reviews or testimonials as mini stories. The stories, they always include a change event. So something has changed with a clear before and a clear after state. And ideally, your brand's delivery, your promise is actually that change event. So when a student talks about how they were 3 years ago and where they are now, then ideally your university was the driver, the agent behind that change event. So a good review talks about, before I joined this program or before I found this university, I thought X, Y, and Z, or I feared that X, Y, and Z. now that I've finished this program or I've completed this, now I experience this, that, and this. And ideally, the best reviews, the before state aligns with what a prospective student is worried about, what they're concerned about, what their questions are. And the after state aligns with what they envision for themselves, what they want to reach, right? And the end state of graduating from our school, for instance, is not necessarily what every student wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that also helps with students who want an end state that's different than the one that we deliver to just ignore us because we're not for them, because we can deliver the end state that they want. So good reviews, good testimonials contain a transformation, a before that prospective students can identify with, and after that they envision for themselves. Now, how do we do this? I must say, in the beginning, we were also looking at how can we kind of, like, you don't want to manipulate reviews, but what we found as a marketing team is that we kind of help see our students what might be important for them, especially prospective students. They don't know necessarily what they're looking for or what things to pay attention to. So we asked our student ambassadors at first, and then all students, like, what's the one thing that most surprised you? What's something you didn't know? What didn't you expect? What do you wish you had known 2 years ago? And we started collecting information from them. And as I said, we only started collecting reviews 5 or 6 years in. In the first years, what we did, we collected student stories. So we were very close to our students and also to our alumni. And we asked them to share their student experience in interviews, in podcasts, like we have long form, we have Instagram carousels, whatever. Like all these transformations, we asked our students to share these transformations. And from these, we selected, I'd say, the 5 that best align with our brand promise, and we amplify those stories.
Like, the others are there, but
the others are there, but these are the ones that we really deliver on, and we amplify those. And the interesting thing that then happens is that prospective students, it's like you help them read the room, and they start paying attention to this one thing that you've expressed in one of these 5 stories, and their experience will kind of align with that story framework you've given. And then if you ask them for a review, as we've seen now, they will kind of tell a similar story because you've kind of guided them like, hey, if you're studying here, pay attention to this because this is something that is of real value for people like you.
Yeah, I hear 2 things actually. Like the one thing I heard early on in your answer was that, so we don't want the review to talk about how the university was. It's really a personal story that you're asking people to tell, which is easier because it's easier to talk about yourself. But I guess if not explicitly prompted, then the answer will be completely different from if you actually tell them that. And education, of course, is great because it is all about personal transformation. It's very different from soap or from Airbnb apartments or those kind of things. And the second thing is that it's also expectation setting. So it's not just telling everyone how great you are. That's part of it. You want to share the enthusiasm of your existing students, but it's also largely expectation setting so that the people who are still left standing after also reading the negative aspects, maybe about the weather or, practical things that you can't get around, which I'm sure like every institution has them. Even if you're on a great location, maybe you're really hard to afford or, every institution has some minor or major points that people need to be aware of. And setting that expectation in the reviews nowadays means also that when students do their research in their favorite LLM tool, those cons will also show up. And for the people for who these cons are really deal breakers, they will drop out and they won't be engaging any further, which is a good thing because they will find another institution that has a different set of advantages.
There is also a bit of fine-tuning there. You want to get reviews, but you don't want them to see like scripted, but you want to have the prompt when the professor is asking for the review, or you prompt them on an email or whatever, to ask them in such a way that you are getting reviews that are focusing on what you want them to focus in a proper way. In the playbook that participants will be able to download at the end of the webinar, we mentioned several of these prompts on how to prompt to get good reviews that are useful for LLMs to pass on to students. Because that's very important to get the right content in the review, not just the rating of the stars.
And how you ask is, of course, another question. It's how you ask, and it's also, what kind of questions you ask, but also when to ask is another thing. Like, you don't want it to be too early. You don't want it to be too in your face, I guess. Or what do you advise there?
So that's one of the items that's in the playbook also it's the steady cadence, not just big blows. That's what's important, to keep asking, and then every now and again get a big ask. For instance, graduation ceremonies are a great point to ask. And now it's a good season. It's June. There's a lot of graduation ceremonies coming up. And I know that KDG has done a very good job at gathering reviews of graduation ceremonies. That's when students are at the end, they're happy, they've achieved something. And there it's very good point in time to get reviews that really reflect on the outcomes of what they've been studying.
Kris, do you have anything to add to that? Because
Well, Jordi already mentioned it. Like, there's a concept in psychology or behavioral economics, the peak end rule, that from any experience, if you zoom out far enough, you only remember two things, like the peak, like the highlight, and the end of any experience. And coincidentally or not, in a university education, these two things happen to coincide very often, like the graduation ceremony and the internship is probably also a big peak experience, or meeting their partner or whatever. But it's like built in. You have like a ceremony at the end that it's like the capstone of their transformation. So what we do, like in the weeks prior to that, or even prior to the ceremony, I'll just invite the students to kind of reflect on how far they've come. Like, remember the first time we talked at a recruitment fair in Romania 4 years ago, and now you're here. Let's reflect on what has changed for you, like, and what drove that change. And by doing that, you kind of put students in the right frame of mind to give a helpful review. And that's the second piece of advice I'd like to share. So if you're just going to ask reviews, like we all get asked for reviews all the time, like any purchase you do on a website or whatever, you always like ask for a
great
review.
delete for me.
Exactly. Same for students, because they get asked a lot of things, not to mention exams that they also have to fill out. But what we found is very helpful is that we inform our students, like, we do this to help more people like you. Remember how lost you were 4 years ago. Like there were so many options, and how did you navigate them? How did you find about this? Well, now maybe you can help future generations find the right information quicker. So it's not about praising us. It's about giving helpful information that helps prospective students, people like you, just a few years younger, navigate this landscape. And then finally, another element that kind of drives their willingness to submit a review is that it also increases the value of their own degree. Because if they happen to graduate from a good school, which is not ranked in our case, but it's well reviewed, then their diploma is also worth more. Subjectively, but it helps.
Yeah. That is also a beef I have with university rankings. It is sort of a self-reinforcing cycle. This is the reality that students are predisposed to have like a positive outlook on you.
Right. Because they chose you in the first place. So
and you don't, I guess, want to see them as consumers who just review their hotel room. They are also part of the community. So I really like that you frame this also as, help future students make a better choice. Because people are really more willing to help others than you might think.
The rankings show you the prestige of the institution, but leave out the fit of yourself with that institution, like what Kris was saying, that's very important, the fit. The perceptions that students have while studying there, that's not shown in the rankings. The rankings is a one-size-fits-all, every person's different, and more, there's all this perception of lack of transparency in rankings that a lot of students are a bit feeling it, and they perceive it as marketing material, not just the perception of what students think about it. So rankings play a role in the decision, but they're just one of the inputs.
If you're looking into what goes into a decision from a prospective student, then it is all these things. And some prospective students will be way more focused on rankings, and they will probably not come to KDG. Others will be not focused on that and have more practical outlook, and they may be more curious of student reviews. And besides that, there is stuff that also they will be asking their LLM, and depending on how well your website is structured, the LLM will give them the correct answer or not, which is things like tuition fees, scholarships, programs available, admission criteria. So we're living in a world now where those questions are getting asked to LLMs, and LLMs will pull the information from anywhere. So there is nowhere to hide. So I think also our role as marketers needs to change from just making it look pretty and trying to put the most positive spin onto things to, of course, steering the positioning. So knowing clearly like where we want to be, what kind of experience we want to offer, what kind of school that we are, and making sure that the information is available from as many different sources as possible. And we can't control the whole narrative, and we shouldn't just let that go. But at least we should make sure there are no gaps. So you can test. There are tools where you can input a number of prompts, questions that people will probably be asking about your universities, like what are the pros and cons of this university, or things where you hope to show up, like what are the best universities of applied sciences for business in Belgium, Netherlands, and Germany, for example. And you can automatically ask that question to a number of LLMs and see what comes out. And depending on what comes out, if you don't get cited, you can look at what sources it refers to, try to get into those sources, because LLMs will only reflect what's already available and accessible to them on the web. So we need to beware that if we're just looking at our web analytics, at which pages that students looked at, that is only the final stage when people have almost already decided that they're going to enroll. But in those earlier stages, they are very strongly influenced with whatever their personal AI is telling them. So it is a different world. A lot of the things that make sense marketing-wise will keep making sense, but really the game has changed. That's a feeling that I very strongly have.
There's two other strategies that I'd like to share.
Mm-hmm.
That also seem to be quite helpful. One is that on our website, we have a page for parents. So it's like the whole information, like what is this university about, explained again in parent language. So the kind of language that parents are looking for. So stuff about accreditation and what about master programs and exchange programs. And so it's like the same information, but told in another tone of voice with other
Emphasis.
Yeah. And that seems to be quite helpful for LLMs as well. And secondly, what we also do on our website and in all content we share, we also do something we call anti-marketing or negative marketing. So we have a number of personas, people that we think would be a good fit, and we also have negative personas. So almost caricatures of people that we think will not be happy at KDG. And we actually have content or standard replies for those personas as well. If they reach out to us or if they visit a certain webpage, we have like triggers in there that will inform them, or signposts rather, that will inform them, like, if you're looking for this, then maybe we are not the right choice. Look over there.
Can you give me an example of that, like a negative persona and how you talk to them?
I'll give you an example. Sometimes I get emails in our study at KDG inbox, like the general inbox. And if it starts with honorable professor, blah, 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 I'm humbled to reach out to your prestigious university. Like, our standard answer is like, please, we are not a prestigious university. We are not exclusive, and proudly so. And that kind of informs these people straight away that they're looking at us through a lens which is not showing reality. Yeah. So people looking for prestige or exclusivity, they won't be happy at our university because we emphasize the other end of the spectrum, the inclusivity.
Yeah, it's like dating or like a job search, I guess. It's a two-way process. So it's not only that you want to be,
of course,
attracting as many as possible. You can't enroll everyone anyway.
Even institutions who don't have these negative personas embedded in their marketing and have this, as Kris is saying, they have more and more LLMs will do it for them.
Exactly.
And the reviews, what students say, is helping LLMs see how this program is fit for. I have, for instance, was checking some reviews this morning, and one is the review itself. The reviewer is saying, I love this program. because I'm comfortable with mathematics and it's good. However, if you want more applied practice, this is not the program for you. And this is the student saying that. The LLMs will find it. That's fantastic. That's great. And it's not just the marketing person saying it.
Yeah, and that's actually a very hopeful development almost. Like we may see lower dropout if it becomes easier to discover, the reality behind the glossy brochures, so to say. And hopefully it can help prospective students avoid some of the wrong decisions, even though that's always going to happen to some extent. Yeah. Claudia Korthout has a question for Jordi. I think it's also part of your guide. So we all three of us have some goodies at the end of this webinar. But Claudia is asking, can you elaborate more on the steady cadence of asking students for review? Is a high frequency more favorable? So how does that really look like in reality, I guess?
Yes, and that's a question that everyone or most of the people working in that are asking themselves at institutions. If you send emails to your students once a week and every week on the footer, that's exactly the same sentence, please review us, full stop, with a link. That's not very useful. The right cadence for some institutions might be every 2 weeks, for some others might be every week, for some others might be every month. But what's important, it's not to ask every single time the very same thing, because then that's not the right thing. Of course, when that's exam period, come on, forget about it.
It feels very uncaring even to ask for it then, right?
And the peak times come when there's study tour and they come back from the study tour. That can be a good way, and you can ask them, and it can be the footer on the email and focus something on the question you put is something about the study tour, or it can be the ambassadors asking other students, or it can be the professors at the end of the module, the more popular professors asking their students. You as marketing need to help all these individuals, the professors, help them with a slide with a QR code that they can show that's easy, that they don't need to work about it. The ambassadors need to help them also. Your role is not just as marketeer to have very glossy brochures and fancy material, but to help and give the tools to these external parties that are not under your control, that will produce the materials that LLMs are looking at and students are looking at, either via LLMs or directly. It changes a bit your role, but you can do.
So you're saying like be deliberate, keep asking, but ask in a way that fits with the moment and ask in different ways throughout the year. So you're building a routine, but it's an annual routine with highs and lows and
that it doesn't look like an automatic routine, because if it looks like an automatic mechanical routine, then it won't have the same effect.
Yeah, and I think Kris's remark that you can emphasize this will help future students to avoid perhaps mistakes or to help them make an informed decision. I think that's also a very strong point to make it not about the school, because who cares about the school? The school is a building, but it's about the community and your fellow students and those who come after you. But you need to ask multiple times. That is for sure.
But also try and clarify why you're asking for reviews. Like, this is not a substitute for rankings. This is not a marketing asset in the terms of, it's not a promotion asset. But in my perspective, marketing is just building something that people want, right? And then like communicating about it. And in order for you to build the thing that most serves the people that you'd like to serve, you need feedback, right?
Yeah.
You don't want anecdotal feedback. Like, students can give feedback to their lecturer or to the professor or about specific experiences, but you help them zoom out. Like, this is the whole university that wants to hear from you. If you zoom out, like, what has your experience been over the months, over the years? And this is also a way to empower students, to make them feel a part of a community that they're partially, for a very small part, but partially responsible for as well. So it's their role, or it's an invitation for them to help make things better for themselves in their next academic year, or people like them that are a bit younger.
Yeah. And does this mean that it also heavily involves student ambassadors as well? The ask, I mean.
We've experimented with that, and that is not always very successful. So we've trained our student ambassadors on these things and on storytelling and on these frameworks, and then we asked them like, okay, now talk to your classmates and try to persuade them to give us feedback, and it hasn't been very successful. And we're not sure, like, this is only the second year that we do this, so we don't really know why it doesn't work. But outsourcing this to student ambassadors, like, I think part of the core message which we are trying to express here gets watered down if you express it to an ambassador, and they need to relay that again to a student. So I think there's like
Yeah, and it's perhaps that it feels a bit inauthentic as well, because you, as the university, you want that review really. So it's like you're delegating into another party, then the ask isn't as strong, I guess.
Mhm.
I would disagree if we are allowed to disagree
for it.
in
Absolutely.
this coffee conversation. So there's not one method fits all, and that's the way to collect reviews. What we have seen with our partners, for some institutions, ambassadors work fantastically, but perfect, fantastic. For some others, like Kris saying, the ambassador's not working that well. And that's nothing wrong with one university or the other. Is that different methods work, and depending on the culture, on the institution, on the programs, some work and some don't. And in the case of ambassadors, there's many different things that play. The case of professors, also some marketeers might try with a professor at the end of the module to ask for reviews, but gosh, they took the professors that no one can stand. So of course, no.
Yeah.
So you need, that's not just go one method. And it's not that easy. That's what we, as EDUopinions, have been getting the learnings over the years. At the beginning, when we started the EDUopinions, we thought, that's easy, that we'll do this way and that will work. And no, different ways. And that's the experience that we've got through all these years, is all these different methods and when to use one or the other. And LLMs and AIs, the way they're treating information and where they're gathering information that goes beyond the university website, that's changed the way marketeers work. But what we've seen, and we've seen it in our own flesh, because during the last year, our customers increased by 50%. And that was because of they understood the need of all these channels, of these external views. That's what LLMs are going and checking and looking at. So that's really a change going then. There's, you either go into the train or you get left out.
I guess marketing is never about the magic solution for something. It is really hard work. Like every review that you gather is hard work, and every method will bring in, a few, and some students respond better to one method than the other, but it is something that should have your focus. And with that, we're coming towards the end of this LinkedIn Live. Let me just quickly see if there's any new questions in the thread that we can perhaps still. Yeah, so Constanza is asking, isn't honest reviews and content also appreciated nowadays over polished content? And I guess that is the whole essence of what we've been talking about. So to close this off, each of us has a little goodie for you as people paying attention to this. We really do value it. So Jordi, can you first present your goodie, so to say?
That's our playbook on how to get honest reviews that will be useful for AIs and LLMs, and to get them, and how to get the reviews that contain what's important for prospective students. There's several steps that we use internally, and several tips and tricks, more than big strategies, but more the what to do in practice if you want to start doing it tomorrow.
Yes. So I've had a look at the guidebook. It's actually very useful, practical, action focused. So I'm just posting a link in the comments now. That is a link that has a form and where you can tick exactly which goodies you want to receive and which you don't. So we will only send you what you request, and we won't bother you. Kris, what do you offer?
An outsider perspective of your brand and your messaging. A wise friend of mine once said, you can't read a label from inside the jar. You need an outsider's perspective. So that's what I'm offering, like a critical friend who looks at your brand, could be a higher education institution or any other brand that is currently in the call. If you want me to look at what I see as an outsider in terms of marketing, brand, reputation, online reputation, and then if you want, we can also do like a 45-minute strategy session if you're interested in that. So just
Wow.
tick the box if you want me to look at your brand with a pair of fresh eyes.
Yeah, and you will get real feedback from Kris. I know he does not mix his words, but that makes this really valuable. Yeah. So, my goodie is an AI visibility report. So you can tell me the website that you have and the brand that you represent. I will track what different LLMs say for about 2 weeks, and then I will share a report with you that will tell you the good, the bad, and also how to make the bad better. So all of these goodies, you can get them at my website. It's actually a Google form, guusgoorts.com/get. So with all that said, I'd like to thank you both, Kris and Jordi, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks
Any
for having
last
us.
thought?
Last thoughts. I think the name of the game nowadays is increasing your brand's surface area, increase your reputation's surface area. So you want your footprint and your surface area as wide as possible and as consistent as possible.
So following
Wise
on
words.
that, who's best to increase your surface area than your students?
Yes, there we go.
We close the loop.
Yes.
Thanks for the conversation. You too.
Thanks, Guus. Thanks, Jordi. And thanks everyone for joining. Ciao.
Have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.